Australia has fostered some of the most unique wildlife in the entire planet. Among these creatures is the dingo that has roamed this continent for thousands of years. Yet, despite its long history, the dingo's status as a native species has remained a subject of considerable debate.
Well, I've yet to be convinced that they are a native dog. I don't believe they're really a native of this country. I reckon they're an introduced species. They're always going to be treated as the enemy. I believe our only option is to destroy the dogs.
To understand the dingo's status, we first need to examine its arrival in Australia. The prevailing theory suggests that the dingo was brought to the continent by people from Southeast Asia. It's believed that these people first visited Australia as early as 30,000 years ago. It is likely they brought the dingo along as a companion animal used for hunting, protection, and for trading roughly 4,000 years ago. Genetic studies support this theory, revealing that the dingo shares a close lineage with ancient wolves from Southeast Asia. Despite this, the question remains, is the dingo a native to Australia, or is it an introduced species? The answer lies in a nuanced understanding of what it means to be native. Dingoes have adapted to the Australian environment over thousands of years. It has played a significant role in shaping Australian ecosystems, influencing populations of smaller introduced predators and herbivores, and maintaining ecological balance. Ecological evidence also supports this view. As an apex predator, the dingo helps regulate populations of other carnivores such as foxes and feral cats, which are considered major threats to native wildlife. In the absence of dingoes, the numbers of these smaller predators have exploded, contributing to the decline of vulnerable species. In areas where dingoes are left alone, there has been a noticeable improvement in the health of local ecosystems, underscoring their integral role in maintaining biodiversity. The dingo's genetic profile adds another layer of complexity to this debate. Studies have shown that dingoes are genetically distinct from domestic dogs, suggesting that they evolved separately after their introduction to Australia. This separation, which occurred over thousands of years, has led to a unique subspecies, adapted to Australia's harsh conditions. In Australia, the dingo is legally recognised as a native species under various government framework, though its legal status and protection varies greatly depending on a few inconsistent variables. The Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act of 1999 is Australia's national framework for environmental protection and biodiversity conservation. While the dingo is not listed as a nationally threatened species, it is considered a native species in the context of biodiversity conservation. This act allows for the recognition of native species and ecosystems of national environmental significance. Dingoes fall under the category of a native species due to their long-standing presence in Australia. But to be clear, this act does not provide blanket protection for dingoes across Australia. It is relevant in areas where dingoes are considered part of a protected environments, for example national parks or reserves. However, in these same national parks, the rangers are dropping tens of thousands of poisonous baits every year targeting wild dogs. And as we all know by now, DNA testing has shown us that there are very, very, very few wild dogs in Australia. The animals they are targeting and killing are dingoes. The government uses misleading names such as wild dog because it's an easier pill to swallow than hearing that our government are actively killing a native species with poison, trapping and shooting. In fact, the New South Wales Government Environment and Heritage website says, "A wild dog is any dog living in the wild, including feral dogs, dingoes and their hybrids. It is therefore necessary to manage wild dogs under the General Biosecurity Duty of the Biosecurity Act 2015. These government bodies use carefully chosen language to soften the blow for those who dig enough to research this. Because hearing that national parks and government bodies are managing wild dogs, it's much easier to hear than slaughtering a culturally and environmentally keystone native species." The cultural significance of the dingo to First Nations people in Australia further solidifies their title as a native animal. For thousands of years, Indigenous people have coexisted with dingoes, integrating them into their cultural practices, spiritual beliefs, and daily lives. In many Indigenous stories, the dingo is a figure of great importance, symbolising the connection between humans and land. To many Indigenous Australians, the dingo is not an invader, but rather a long-standing companion, a reflection of their deep, enduring relationship with the Australian environment. To call the dingo invasive or a pest is to overlook the deep cultural ties between these animals and Australia's first people. Regardless of your personal beliefs of dingoes, they have undoubtedly become an integral part of the Australian ecosystem and cultural fabric. Its long history in Australia, its unique genetic makeup, and its ecological significance suggest that the dingo's relationship with this land is far more complex than a simple classification. While the question of whether the dingo is a native species may spark strong feelings either side of the fence, it is clear that the dingo is an essential part of Australia's natural and cultural heritage. As we continue to navigate the complexities of conservation and ecological balance, understanding the role of the dingo is crucial in shaping the future of Australia's wildlife. Perhaps the question of whether the dingo is a native species isn't as important as understanding its role in the ecosystem and its cultural significance. The dingo has been here for thousands of years, and whether it arrived with humans or adapted on its own, it's earned a place in the Australian landscape.